iPhones on here too, so that's okay. All right, I'm just going to get this going because it is kind of it is a very in-depth and it's going to take me some time to get through this, as well as allow questions and what have you. So again, this will be going out in anybody who wants it. It's going to be part of our library because I'm taping it. So does anybody know why they're here? Somebody say something.
I was coming here for Dawn's lunch. So.
On this call, not in the office. Yes, I get that. Absolutely. Hello, Brittany.
Your listing presentation?
Yes, sir. How many people have done a list by show of hands? By the way, this is a much better thing if you guys have your, when we teach classes and stuff, it really helps if you guys have your cameras on because we like to make them interactive a little bit. But who here has done a listing presentation? Not many of you. All right. How many people feel they could use a little help with their listing presentation and maybe, you know, get a little bit better of a skill set going on? Okay. So, Jeff, seriously, you could teach this damn thing. You know, listing presentations are well, I like being a listing agent, and listing presentations are key. I'm just going to preface this with, you know, most of my business these days is referral and repeat when it comes to listings. I still do the same listing presentation because a few times I did and just assumed I had it. Oh, they were interviewing other people. I took them for granted. I didn't get it. Oh, right in the heart, you guys. So, you know what? I'll go through my listing presentation and really, you know, I'm going to do a lot of screen sharing with you guys. The listing presentation pretty much starts at the phone call. So I've taken, what I've done is I'm going to have all this is in Word documents that I can send you guys, by the way. So if you're curious, and again, this is interactive, don't hesitate to raise your hand, ask questions, give feedback. So I'm just going to jump right into it. And let me see, which screen do I want to share first? We'll do this. Whoops, that's not a screen share. That's just me doing that. All right, let me get this up here. Lori's in the waiting room. Okay, can everybody see that okay? All right. So the listing presentation. The listing presentation starts with questions, which start right on the phone. So as soon as you take a call or follow up with a call or a lead on the phone, questions are really simple, but it's really, you know, he who's asking the questions is he who's in control. And the more questions you can ask, the more information you can get, the more you can set yourself up for success. Because if you ask the right questions, they'll tell you everything you need to know to win the deal. So first thing I always do, even if it's a friend or someone I know, setting the appointment, right? Thank you for calling, thank you for calling me or allowing me the opportunity to discuss potentially selling your home with me or us. However, I put us in there a lot because some of you are new and you might want, you might want to just say us and use the whole team concept. That's why that's in there. But I'm never assuming that I'm getting the deal, and I'm never assuming that they're moving or they're listing. It's always discuss potentially selling your home, right? Because by saying that, like the last one I did, they're like, she literally goes, "Oh no, Wes, I'm selling my home. My home will be on the market in 2 weeks or less." Okay, that was great information to get. So then you go, "So are you considering selling your home?" Obviously you are, but you still want to just verify. When would you like to have it on the market? And these are all questions you're asking before you ever even go on a presentation. Where are you moving to? Depending on what they tell you, dig a little deeper into some more reasons. Maybe if they say, "Oh, I'm moving to Tennessee." Oh, great. What's taking you to Tennessee? Oh, retirement, grandkids. You want to get at their why so you understand their reasoning, right? Because that will help get to their level of motivation of why they're moving or selling, and which will help you kind of cater your presentation or your talk tracks to them. Any questions on any of those so far? Okay, there's more questions. When do you have to have your home sold by? And people, you want to ask these questions. Not everybody's going to be truthful with you, by the way. Some people say, well, I really don't have to sell, or, you know, I don't have to have it sold by any particular time. Some people tell you, well, I need to have it sold within 3 months, 90 days. Okay, we got to get going, right? If they're buying another house, do you need to sell that, or excuse me, finding out if they're buying another house, do you need to sell this in order to purchase your next home? Key question to ask, right? We need to know sense of urgency. If they've already bought it, if they've already found another home and they're writing a contingent offer, maybe out of state, it'll breed more questions. Some people say, no, I really don't. Okay, great. Excuse me. I always ask, what's most important? Price, timing, or a quick sale, basically, or both? A blend. Let them tell me. Most people will tell you, well, both. Or they'll tell you price, right? But the reality is, if they've got to be moved within 90 days, well, time's more important than price. You kind of got to blend them or put a marketing strategy together that allows it to achieve that. And then I always ask them, how much do they owe on their house? Does anybody know why you'd ask them how much they owe on their house? We'll get into it later, but you're gonna want to, number one, make sure that they have equity in their house, but also two, when you're preparing for the presentation, you're usually going to want to take a net sheet that shows them how much they're going to pull out of the house, shows them all the fees, so there's no sticker shock later, and you don't run into any issues. So any questions other than that you would ask? Or Jeff, is there any other questions that I might have missed that you ask in your, because I know you do a lot of the same stuff?
No, those are pretty basic for me as well.
You guys, Jeff just said right there, they're pretty basic. These are the basic questions you want to be asking, and then maybe developing other questions based on their answers. I think some of the mistakes I see people make is they just go down, they go through their questions, and they never ask other questions, right? Because there's certain things people can say. It's like, oh, take a little deeper on those. This is like a discovery stage that's going to set the stage for you having a very successful presentation and winning the presentation, by the way. All right, so now we've asked all the questions. How does this all start? Well, that was the initial call, right? So on that initial call, obviously, you're also setting an appointment. And then as soon as you're off of that, you're sending out a calendar invite, which confirms that appointment. And here's the thing that most people don't do, is you're setting an appointment for a pre-walkthrough. Has anybody ever done a pre-walkthrough before going on a listing presentation? I bet you just one. The only people who has, can somebody guess as to why you'd want to, one of the reasons you want to do that? Come on, you guys, take a stab at it.
You want me to answer? Or someone
Yeah,
else? It's actually everything. You have to know what the condition of that house is before you can do anything.
Yeah, you're going. That's exactly that's one of the main reasons. They're asking you to come over and talk to you about, give them a sales presentation on listing their house. They're going to be asking for value. Without seeing the house and knowing what kind of condition it's in, how can you show up and think you're going to give them a stellar knock it out of the park presentation? Right? You really want to see, for me, pricing, comps are comps, yes. But if you have the two same houses and one, let's just say one just sold 5 houses down, same floor plan, but it's got a remodeled kitchen, granite, brand new floors, beautifully manicured yards, and sold for $800,000. And the house you go to, you show up thinking, okay, well, that's an easy comp, $800,000. And you go in and see, well, they don't have a remodeled kitchen. They got the old basic white tile. The dogs have torn up the yard. The floors need to be replaced. Is that house worth $800,000? Are they going to get $800,000? Nope. So
But they think that they are.
Well,
But they
so
think
that's
that they are.
So really what you're doing, again, you're still on a fact-finding mission. You want to know what you're going to be up against, because you're right. They're going to think their house is worth $800,000, and you're going to have to be armed and ready before you go. You don't want to show up and try and figure out I want to say your defense strategy or your defense play when you get there. You want to have it a little bit ahead of time. So yeah. Does anybody know the other reason you want to go on that appointment first? Or go, I call it the pre-listing walkthrough. Nobody wants to take a stab at that? Yeah, that's good, Christina. That's definitely something I usually don't do, because I'm already going to go on the appointment, because first off, I want to meet them. I want to get a chance to get in front of them and start building the rapport versus trying to start building the rapport the minute I show up for my listing presentation, right? Also, it gives me a chance to plant some seeds of doubt, because sometimes they'll say, I've gotten this question or this question many times. Well, why didn't you come over and see my house first? I'm like, well, how can I talk to you intelligently about selling your house without even having seen it? I mean, other agents do that. Yes, they're just going to show up, but how can they be effective if they didn't? But that's the level of service that you're going to get from me. I do my job with excellence, and I want to know everything before I get there, so I can put a comprehensive presentation together for you. Make sense? Any questions on any of that so far? All right, we'll get back into it then. So you're assessing the condition, as well as let me see, let me get Suzanne in there. Assessing the condition as well as making notes. And then once you've seen that, you've done that, part of getting ready for the presentation is getting a net sheet together. And that net sheet's going to have, basically, they told you what they owe. So it's going to have their payoff. It's going to show who pays what fees, basically going to show them what they net out. On the day of the appointment, you're going to confirm the appointment. You always want to confirm the appointment, by the way, in the morning, because I can't tell you how many times I did, and I'm greeted at the door with this like, it's happened more times than I can count on one hand. Because people don't necessarily put in their calendar, they forget, it happens. And then dress for success. Have some affirmations, visualize. When I go there, I always dress it up a little bit. I do have these affirmations I go through as I'm sitting in my car in front of it. And usually that morning I sit in a quiet space and I actually visualize how the appointment goes, with it ending with me getting the signatures on the contract. Let's see. Didn't go. There we go. And visualize right to them, so you've already seen the house. You don't have to walk through the house now, which is good. So now usually you're going to just sit down at the table and get right to it. And one of the things that I usually do is set the expectation up front. So, and my expectation is, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Stoller, we're going to go over my presentation here. We're going to talk about price strategy. We're going to talk about commission. We're going to talk about the marketing. And one of three things is going to happen. You're either going to choose to hire me, you're going to choose not to hire me, or I'm going to choose not to take the listing because I don't think we're a good fit. And by the way, any three of these is okay with me. And usually they're looking at you like really weird. Like, okay, you might choose not to take our listing. It's almost like a takeaway question. It's a very powerful question to ask if you're comfortable enough throwing it out there. So then ask a few more questions. I usually go back and review their question. I usually go through, I have my list of questions and answers that I asked on the phone, right? And I always go back through those and just confirm them, because usually I'm talking to one person on the phone. And when I get there, I'm usually talking to two people, right? And they could both have a little bit of a difference of opinion. So it's always just a good, hey, so I just want to I just want to kind of breeze through the questions I already asked and just confirm. So you're moving to such and such place. You've got to be moved by such and such a time. And by the way, what price are you wanting or needing? And it's funny, you get all kinds of answers. Some people will tell you what they want. Some people will tell you, well, the posture. Well, that's why I have you here. I have no idea. Bullshit. You've been on Zillow. You know what your neighbor's house sold for. And what is the purpose of me asking them? Anybody?
Just to set expectations.
Yep, 100%. I want to know where their headspace is at. Like literally, because if they're like, sometimes I want to know where, by the way, I've already comped it out. I already have my price written down and they'll see that later. And I tell them, well, yeah, we're going to go through the comps. I'm going to tell you exactly what I think it's worth. I want to understand what some people may want a certain price or they're not going to sell. I need to know that. Some people are expecting a certain price because they really don't know, or they think the comps are this or that. And I really want to know where their headspace is at. So I know basically how, if I'm going to be able to surprise them and make them happy, if we're on the same page. If we're on the same page and they're like, oh, I would love to get $750 for this house. And I know that that's a slam dunk. You can breeze through a lot of things. I'm not there to take up an hour and a half to 2 hours of their time. I've had presentations where it's taken 2 hours. Most of that's just rapport building and shooting the shit. The meat of the report or going through a presentation to me shouldn't take more than 30 minutes because you just bullet point. Unless you have an engineer, then you want to spend a little more time on the comps and the numbers and all that kind of good stuff. So we set the expectation. Oh, for time and outcome, I forgot. I usually tell them this will take about 20 minutes, give or take. And then going through the questions, asking a few more, and then always asking them, are you willing to do some things to prepare your home? Right? Because if I went over there and if it's turnkey, I don't ask that question. But if it's not turnkey and that could affect the price, let's say they want, let's go back to the first example. House down the street, turnkey, sold for $800,000. Their house is not turnkey, but they think or they want $800,000. Okay, great. Are you willing to do some things to prepare for that to get that price? Again, it just lets me know how to cater it and where to take it. So go through the presentation. You guys know we have a listing presentation that you can that's customizable in the toolbox. I'll actually go through mine if you want. Let's see. Why is this not going down? Let's see. Oh, there we go. I'm going through the presentation, reviewing the comps. This can be a quick, if their idea of price matches yours, then it won't take long. Obviously, you know the comps are the same as mine. That's why you got the price you did. Great. Let's move on. Review the net sheet. So based on what you said you owe and what is customary fee-wise, here's the net sheet. This is about what you'd be walking away with. Does that match about what you thought? And then I go through, and then if we're getting to that point, it's like, yeah, great, we're moving forward. Then we review a marketing plan and timeline, which we'll go through next, and discuss at the same time discussing a to-do list. Basically, this should always include getting their inspections, cleaning the house, the windows, having the yard dialed in, and any repairs that need to be done. You really want all those things done before you get this started. You want to get all those things done before you go on the market. Does anybody know why that is? Jeff.
Your question, I'll answer.
Why do you want to get all the reports and repairs and disclosures and everything done before you hit the market?
I would say, well, for me, I would tell people that way you're not writing, quote, a blank check. You know what the issues are. Somebody's not negotiating something going, okay, we got a $10,000 roof problem. You knew ahead of time what was happening or coming. And then 2, to get the best price possible. I'm selling it clean, ready to go home.
Yep, perfect. Couldn't have said better myself. I would maybe add a little bit that invest them in the selling of the property too, because I want them to spend some money getting the inspections done. And I want to be able to negotiate one time and fairly. I don't like surprises in the middle of a contract. You usually don't have too many with a newer house, but you get in some of these older neighborhoods, or you get Discovery Bay, houses on the water, houses on the golf course, Hoffman houses. you're going to have inherent issues. It's better to have those all known up front. And filling out disclosures is a pain in the butt, but you want them to do that first. There was a day and time where we did all this stuff after the fact, after we got a deal together. This is just a much better way of doing business. So you're kind of just, you're talking through all that and getting them committed to the process, getting them to put a little skin in the game. You guys want to see what my listing presentation is? Let's see if I can get in here and find it. And just so you guys know, I go through this really quick. In fact, actually, when I went on this listing presentation, my goal is actually not to even, oh, go ahead, Lori. You gotta, hang on a sec. Okay.
Okay, good. So actually, now that you brought this up, I have two questions. So one,
Yeah.
I was going to ask you before you did this. So you didn't mention about, do you always take every listing every presentation that you go on? And I have an example of one that I went on with one of our old brokers, but I don't take a listing that I can't sell.
100%. You got here. It's funny when I got in, I'm going into my 25th year. And back in the day, and still even this time, newer agents, they'll take any listing because they think they have business. No, if you take a listing, as Lori said, that you cannot sell, you have a liability and you have a headache, and you're going to have a client that is going to be making your life miserable. And you're going to be so focused on that and dealing with that you won't be able to see the ones coming at you that you can sell. Sometimes it's okay to walk away from them.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah. And especially if you can't, I remember he took one, it was his neighbor. We did it both together, and we had the comps there, and they wanted a certain amount, which is way over what the comps were. And so husband and wife sitting there, and, he goes, well, I'll put it on the market for your price. And they go, Lori, what do you think? And I pushed the comps back at them on the table. And I said, well, here's the comps. And this is what I would list it for. If you wanted to sell within 2 weeks to 30 days, this is what I would list it at. Well, they were like way over. They're like 20 to probably 50,000 over what the comps were. And it ended up sitting for 4 months. And, he goes, hey, we'll adjust the price in 2 weeks. Well, he never asked to adjust the price in 2 weeks because he thought he was going to lose the listing. But the listing did him no good because it sat for 4 months. He was not the hero, or we were not the hero, because we didn't sell it. You're only the hero if you do your job. So it came off the market, and they relisted it the next year with someone else. So that was not a great thing. So if you can't come to reason with the price of that listing, and you can't sell it for that price, and that they're going to kind of give you a headache of trying to drop it, let it go. It's not worth your name out there.
So true. Here's another offset to that. If somebody is unrealistic in their price, but their motivation is a level 9 or 10, meaning they actually have to sell, I'll take it, because they're going to have a pain point at some point in time if they have to sell it. However, I'll do it with the fact that I'm going to say, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, we'll try it at your price, because I don't want you leaving any money on the table, and I understand that. So can we agree that after 2 weeks, we'll drop it to my price? If they'll agree to that, by the way, I will get that modification of terms signed right then and there with a post date of that time. That way, I don't have to have that fight later on, because they may say, yeah, that's fine, Wes. And I guarantee you 2 weeks goes by and you'd go to have that conversation. Well, remember, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, we talked about dropping the price. Yeah, but you know what? I don't think you've done enough, or what have you done? And, you didn't have an open house, or, it was a holiday weekend. They'll have every excuse. And see, here's the thing about sellers. They're going to try and sell you. Straight up, they're going to try and sell you on why their house is worth more, on why you should leave it priced higher longer. It's just the way it is. They become salespeople. And if you're not strong enough, you cave to that. I've done it quite a few times. I've caved to it. So my goal when I go in really is to not ever even have to open up my presentation. But I always have it with me. I always have it there in front of me. And I try to talk through it all. If we're agreeing on everything, there might not be, and I usually will look at them and say, okay, so, I brought this presentation, but, do you want me to go through it? And usually they'll say, no, Wes, don't worry about it. We're already far enough along. And I always leave it with them anyway. And it's just, it's a lot of fluff. And it's a lot of fluff and a lot of look pretty, because most of the time, who's making the decision? The wife. And they like all the fluff stuff, makes them feel good. So anyway, actually, this was a listing presentation for the $2 million listing I have. And I never even opened this. It just talks about, the overview of what we're going to be talking about and doing, tells a little bit about me. And if I am going through it, I really breeze through this one real quick. I want it in there so they can look, but I'm not going to sit there. I never want to talk about myself. I say that you can go back and look at this if you want to know more about me, about my business, so they can see how long I've been in business. And then, is there something I'm missing about your house? What drew you to buy it? What drew you to this home when you bought it? Because that'll be a little telling. What's your favorite feature about the house? What do you like about the neighborhood? What are some of the nearby attractions and amenities? Here's the thing. We do this every day. So we're kind of programmed and we might miss things. First off, usually there are specific things that drew that seller to their house. And wouldn't it be great if they could tell you that? And then you included it in your marketing description or whatever it is, where you might not have really thought about that. Oh, it was the outdoor barbecue or the view, you'll catch things like that, but there's other little intrinsic things. So just dialoguing a little bit more about that. I can change this to however I want. This is one of my favorite spots if I'm going through here. Again, if I think, especially if I'm competing against other realtors, I'm always trying to plant that. Some of you who are newer, I can help you modify this. I already know the answers. They're not on here, but I turn it around and I'm asking the questions upside down and I'm writing my answers by it. How long have you been in business? Is real estate your full-time job? How many sales did you have last year? How many sales do you have year to date? What is the average sales price for this area? What's your commission structure? What is your list price to sales price ratio? I can quote all those. But by doing this, I'm trying to show them that, well, number one, I know my stuff, but if you're interviewing anybody else, did you ask them these questions? Because I'm probably going to beat somebody out on some of these questions, which is what I really like. Then why I'm different, all the kind of stuff in there. Of course, Gina Marie put this together, so there's obviously some really weird stuff in it. When I say weird, fun. Let me rephrase that. There's some fun stuff. She likes to make people laugh. So there's some, I think one of the ones, oh yeah, like, why am I different? My kryptonite, my super hot girlfriend. Yeah. And actually that does get a few laughs. So, and by the way, honey, you need to update this. I didn't realize we're just dating and you're only my girlfriend.
I know. I was just thinking that.
You're a little behind the times on this. My signature approach to selling real estate. This is what I'm going to tell you: staying on top, consistency, attending classes. Here's some what clients are saying about you. Some what do you call those? Testimonials. Yeah, that's it. Always helps throw some testimonials. And again, I don't like to, anything that's about me, I'm not going to spend time. I usually breeze right through this, but that way they know it's there. I have them. They can go back in and look at it later. You guys, you don't want to be that person who's walking in and saying, well, I'm the number one agent in my office, and I've sold this many houses. I put that in the questions. So it's not a brag. It's like, I'm trying to plant seeds of doubt and make sure that if they're talking to anybody else, and it really doesn't matter to me if I'm first in or last in. If I'm first in, they're armed now to go up against any other agent. They're going to ask those agents that questions and they're not going to have the answers, right? If I'm the last one in, they're going to be going like, well, none of the other agents ever asked me these questions. So going down through this, what does realtor mean? You know, again, I really do breeze through a lot of it because it's a lot of fun, but it's impressive. And, you know, I want to talk about the numbers. They see all this. It kind of looks cool to them. I'll stop every now and then and kind of talk about it a little bit. Every probably tells so quick, and price is the number one factor in controlling this outcome. So let's make sure I kind of, you know, that price is the number one controller of whether this house sells or not. Comparative market analysis. And usually this is where, like, if they want me to go through the presentation, we've already kind of touched on price. Maybe they told me their price, maybe they didn't. This is where I'll actually pull out the comps. I didn't have comps to go with this. That's a CMA class that we're going to be teaching. Monica's going to do one and I'm going to do one. Because to me, there's several different ways you can get there. She uses the program. I just use raw data. We both get to the same number, just two different ways. And some people like it in a more of a form type way, where I just use the raw MLS data in raw form and just throw it at them. Not really throw it at them, but go over it with the market analysis, marketing the property, right price, great marketing, sold. Fact versus fiction when it comes to online marketing. Many agents will try to convince you that they have the secret sauce. Yeah, there is no secret sauce. Fact is, every agent's listing is syndicated out by the MLS to hundreds, if not thousands, of websites. Truth, if a buyer is house shopping online and your home matches their criteria, it would be almost impossible for them not to find your home. Well, it's just priced right too. Marketing channels, just goes over some of the channels we use. Getting started. Once we have agreed on a price and I've answered all your questions, we have a little paperwork to complete, then I can have your home on the market in as little as 48 hours. That's granted, we don't have to do a lot of things. Granted, I'm not slapping a house on the market in 48 hours. Usually got to get it cleaned up. Usually got to get it, well, a lot. Now, some people are like, look, I've got to sell. I'm not going to do anything to it. We need to price it to sell it. Okay, let's get it on the market. I still would want to get professional pictures. I don't care how bad it is. I want professional pictures always, because I feel like that's a representation of me out there when people see that. And pictures of it always amazes me. You don't get a second time to make a first impression. And I always cringe when people put houses on the market with one or two pictures or old pictures. More pictures coming soon. When that house hits the market, when you hit the save button on the MLS for active, it within minutes populates out to anyone who has a search criteria that matches that. And it doesn't you know, you get one chance. It goes out sometimes to hundreds of people. And if it's not nice, if it doesn't catch their attention, if it doesn't have some kind of decent pictures, they're on to the next. They discount it. You know, people, it's almost like people tend to scroll with their eyes. They're not really necessarily reading the descriptions, right? So if it doesn't catch them, they're on to the next real quick. And thank you. My contact info, and I usually walk away with, by this time I already know whether I have the price. Some people will literally, they want to talk about it, they need to think about it. That means you didn't answer all their questions, by the way. Gina Marie, I don't know what is going on with you, but you're like possessed. Any questions so far? Anything you'd like me to go over more in depth? Because that pretty much what I just did. Yeah, Jeff.
I had a question, kind of devil's advocate. Do you do yours with a computer laptop on that, or is it actually printed out?
Printed out.
Me too.
Us old school guys do it that way. I know some people take their laptops or their you know, their what do you call it, the notebook or notepad, whatever it's called.
If something happens to my computer, I don't know how to fix it in the middle of that.
Lori, it is, I can put it on a PowerPoint very easily. I usually do. Yeah, it's Gina Marie answered all those.
No,
so
thank
yeah, it definitely needs update. It tells you how often I go on listing presentations. Like usually these days, it's somebody calling me and saying, "Hey Wes, I need to list my house," which after 25 years, that's a nice place to be. Everybody will be there. It doesn't happen the first couple of years. I mean, maybe it does. Some people do. But if they call me and say, hey, Wes, I need to list my house. Great. You know, you want me to swing by? Do we need to chat? You know, let me come by. I usually say, let me come by and take a look at your house. And I'll still usually print that out and bring it by. I have an update because I really don't go through it or look at it, which obviously bad on me. I would definitely say, if they want to talk to you, never take it for, like I said, I literally, somebody called and say, hey, Wes, I want to list my house. Can you come over and talk to me about that? They didn't, you know, I just assumed I was getting the listing. I'm over there talking to them and I didn't bring a presentation, was super casual with them, just kind of had a conversation with them. And they're saying, okay, well, we'll get back to you. We've got 2 more agents to interview. And I'm just like, I'm dead. Stick a fork in me. I'm done. Like, I'm done. I didn't go over there prepared. I made an assumption. I was wrong. So that's a pretty, if you don't hear anything else, I really want to make sure that you guys hear that. Don't ever take it for granted. Don't take anybody, don't take your best friend, don't take a family member for granted. You just can't. And by the way, with family members, those are sometimes the ones you want to say no to, you guys. And if you think I'm kidding, not even close. I actually have been, you know, I can tell you some pretty bad stories about dealing with family. So I actually don't do deals for family anymore. I tell them, call me. I'm more than happy to talk to you and give you advice. You know, I'm happy to advise you. I'm happy to tell you what I think based on what a realtor's telling you. But I'm not working for a family member. What's so funny out there, man? I feel like I'm missing something. Y'all are laughing and you're all right out there. Jeff, of course it's Jeff. There's always got to be some class clown in the room, right? So what do you guys think? I'd love to hear some feedback. I'd love to hear anything you guys might do differently or you'd like to see in that. I really do believe that it starts with those questions and just building that rapport and getting as many answers as you can.
I would agree. I think that the part of what you were talking about, going over there first, is huge because again, you get a chance to touch your clients, get that rapport already going. So now when you go back for listing presentations, kind of the level of stress just kind of dropped a little bit. I've already met you, kind of everything's okay. It's a little easier to go through. And I quote somewhat do the same thing on mine.
I guarantee you there's nobody out there doing that. There's nobody, it's almost the same thing as when you want to go preview the houses before you take your buyers to them. Otherwise you're walking in blind just like they are. You know, you're seeing it for the first time. You're just a door opener at that point. Yeah, Francine.
Okay, so my question to you would be so say I'm the client and I'm asking you, why should I use you? That's what I want the answer.
Well, first off, it's basically in there in the presentation. I'll say, well, you know what, we'll get to that in the later on in the presentation. So I guess that's the thing. You want to take that. It should have everything in there so there is no questions. If you're getting questions, it means you didn't do a good enough of a job. If somebody's asking me why they should use me, where's that feedback coming from? It's coming from Wesley. Okay, you know, that's but that is a good question. And I actually I haven't heard that. I haven't gotten that question in over 22 years. You know, when I was newer, I got that question a lot, but I didn't have a presentation worth a darn back then either, or, you know, that covered off all those points. But usually what I would say is, well, because nobody's going to work harder than me for you. I'll tell you that. And I'm always comfortable saying that because you all know my work ethic and how much and how hard I work. And I will outwork anybody. So that's usually what I say. And you're right. I mean, it's a relationship business. I mean, we all kind of do the same thing, but not, it really comes down, and Jeff will attest to this. It really comes down to just being truthful with them, being truthful on price. Don't let them sell you. Don't cave because, oh, I really want this listing and I know it's probably only worth 750, but they want 800. So, okay, well, I'll take it. No, be honest. And sometimes, guys, sometimes I still get duped a little bit. Not very often. I've got a lot stronger. But sometimes, I feel bad for somebody. It's like, I know they need every penny. So yeah, we'll try this at a higher price because I know you need it or want it. And that's really important to you. And, for some reason, I feel like I always get burned when I do that. FYI. So, and the other place, FYI, the other place you get burned is when somebody's grinding you for commission. And I'll tell you, I have that one question in there, like, what's your commission structure? And I have the net sheet. So I put it on there up front, what I do. And, for most of my people who have done business with time and time again, it's lower than 5%. They can see that. But usually I have it in my pro, so I put it right there. And by the way, because I'm already discounting it a little bit, that question is a non-question. Every time somebody asks me, well, can you discount a little more? No. And by the way, no is a complete sentence. And if they even ask me, I'm probably not taking their listing because they don't value me. And somebody's going to grind you like that. I wish Kevin was on this call. And Jeff will remember this one. They're going to keep grinding on everything, and they're going to be the biggest pain in the ass to work with. I had somebody one time, I gave him my deal. I knew him. And he literally called me back and said, well, Wes, yeah, you know what? I talked to another agent friend of mine and they're willing to do it for this much commission. I'm like, great, go with them. No problem. No hard feelings. Click. Done. I didn't lose a bit of sleep over it. Guy called me back the next day. Well, Wes, can we talk about that? I really don't want to use him. I'm like, well, if you're willing to pay me what I'm worth, yeah, that's fine. He's like, okay. And then I went over there. No, well, I really need you to do it for this, Wes. I'm like, I'm fucking done with you. But I said, I didn't say that. I controlled myself. I held my anger back. I said, you know what? Here's the thing. I got some agents in my office. Some of them might be a little hungry right now. Let me go back and check and see if they're willing to do it for you. That way you're still in the company and blah, 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 blah. Came back and put it out there. And guess who said, yeah, I'll do it, man. Kevin Musto. Love that guy. He's just a little hustler. Jeff, was that not his biggest nightmare client ever?
He hated it, but he grinded his way through it the whole time. That's just who he is.
He did. I would have fired the guy. That guy put him through the ringer and it never ended. The guy would literally, he had 7 different phones and he'd call, because Kevin knew his phone number and would just not answer his call. So he'd call from another phone. That's how bad it was. And then when it got down to it, he wanted more money, more concessions. I mean, it was just bad. There was a red flag for me because again, he wanted to grind me. I was like, nope. And Kevin was like, I get it now, Wes. And I'm glad he had that experience because he'll never let that happen again.
Yeah, it was a big learning curve for him. He admits it to this day. It's like, okay, yeah, I'm glad I did it, but wow. He knows what that's like now.
There's another person or two on this call that has kind of a little bit of the same experience. If somebody wants something for nothing, they're going to try to, and you decide to give it to them, they're going to try and take everything from you, even what you don't have to give. It's just the way it is, unfortunately. So, any other questions on the presentation? Like I said, the presentations don't have to take a long time, you guys. They just have to be powerful, strong, to the point, unless you have an engineer. Then you got to slow it down a little bit and dig into some details a little bit. Leslie, you look like you had something you wanted to say or ask. Okay. You guys, you want me to send out those questions to everybody who's on this call? Or did you write them all down? That's really where it starts. And I'm telling you, the key is when you show up for the appointment, revisit the questions just as a confirmation. It shows also that you were paying attention, you were taking notes. And the other one question that I can't say enough of, ask them what they want to get out of the house, or what they feel their house is worth. If they don't tell you, that's fine. And I always have it written down. So the funny thing is I usually go into my presentations with a pen. And at the end of the presentation, I usually have a sticky note with my price point in pencil. So I tell them, like, just so you know, I'm not telling you what you want to hear. That way, if they say a higher price, I'm like, look, this is what it's worth. I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear. That was my best estimation. Oh, and once they agree, while we're there, I usually go through the marketing plan. So let me just show you real quick that, because I do have a marketing plan that I do go through with them, because and I want to make sure I bring something up because Dawn will not forgive me if I don't. So I go through the marketing timeline. It basically goes through marketing for everything, dates for anything that need to be done. Disclosures, I want them done by X date. If there needs to be staging is a certain date. Here's the date the sign will go up. Here's the date the photos will be taken. Here's the date for coming soon if we're going to put it in the MLS as a coming soon. This isn't quite organized like I had it, so I'll reorganize it and send it out to all of you. Dawn, this one's for you. You always, when possible, want to put a house live on the MLS on a Thursday.
She's on a call.
Okay, well, you can tell her I said that. So, does anybody know why? So it actually, it's funny. I've been doing this for a long time just because it was my own philosophy, but then it is actually statistical data that you can find at the National Association of Realtors. Basically, people are Monday and Tuesdays, they're working their butts off trying to play catch up. And Wednesday, they're finally starting to be on top of things. Thursday, they're through all their emails. They're starting to think about the weekend. And remember, when you put it live on the MLS, it drips out to anybody who's watching. So it's like it's a proven statistic. That's the best day for the best results to sell it quickly or quicker and capture as much play for the weekend. Because between Thursday and Friday, they're setting up appointments for the weekend. If you put it on a Saturday, chances are people already have their plans and they're already seeing properties. So you're going to miss capitalizing on that weekend. I'm writing down the date for scheduling a broker tour and any open houses we do. I'm not an open house fan. When I have listings, I let the people know if they want open houses, or I ask them if they want open houses, and I let them know that our wonderful ace agents at our office will be the ones doing it, not me. I think the best time to do an open house is that first weekend, by the way. And I schedule update days and progress reviews because I want to every Tuesday, I want to talk to them and say, hey, here's what I'm seeing. Here's the activity we're getting. Here's the feedback I'm getting, or we're not getting anything. So I also put in after 2 weeks to sit down, schedule potential price adjustment to talk to them about that. My opinion is you cannot communicate enough. I would rather have somebody tell me, you know what, Wes, you don't need to call me so much. You don't need to tell me all this. By the way, I've never had anybody do that, but it's does anybody know the name Rick Fuller? Okay, well, Rick's a very dear friend of mine. Rick worked with me years and years and years ago, and he worked with me at Keller Williams. And he came to my Keller Williams office and says, I'll sign up for Keller Williams if you'll coach me. I'm like, what? Well, I coached him too good and didn't take enough of my own coaching advice because look at him now. But I remember one of our last things, he's like, what do you have for me today, boss? And I'm like, have you called all your clients this week? And I'll never forget this. And he'll tell you this day, it's probably the most little valuable tidbit I gave him. And this was probably our last coaching session too. I'm like, dude, you're crushing it. You're on your way. I said, but have you called your clients this week? He's like, no. I'm like, why not? Well, I don't have anything to tell them this week. Meaning, it was during a slow time in the market. And I said, I want you to call every one of your clients and just say, hey, was just thinking about you. There's not a lot going on out here. Any questions you have for me? And literally, if you call them every week, you're out in front of it. Here's how I look at it. And this is what got me to do this. If I pick up my phone and I see one of my clients calling, they're not calling to tell me, Wes, gosh, you're such a great agent. You're doing so good. Thank you so much. If my phone's ringing with a client on it, it's because I dropped the ball, I missed something, they want something, I didn't do something, there's something wrong, typically. I mean, I'm probably not going to get my butt chewed out, but now when I answer that phone, when I answer the phone, what am I doing? I'm playing defense. You want to play offense with your clients. You want to be out in front of everything. So the best way to do that is just make it a habit of calling them at least once a week, even if it's just say, hey, I know there's not a whole lot going on, slow market right now. I just wanted to check in, see if you have any questions, make sure you're doing okay. I literally called my client this week on my $2 million listing. Hey, how you doing? You know, rain, slow, Wes, it's all good. I'm not worried about it. Don't need to sell this house. I know it's not going to sell right away, and I'm not lowering the price or giving it away. Perfect. Thanks, Kenya. I'm going to call you next week, though. Wes, you don't have to. I'm going to call you next week, Kenya. That's just what I do. Like, I'm going to call you every week. That way you never want, like, if you don't, because there's nothing to tell, they're sitting home wondering, like, what's going on in my house? What's my agent doing? Nothing's going on. Why is nothing going on? Well, you can just call them and say, yep, the rain's been keeping people in. Yep, market's kind of slow. Yep, only 30 houses sold this month. You know, just keep them updated. Sometimes I just say, hey, you know what? Just checking in. I got nothing for you. And they love it. And then, by the way, that keeps your phone from ringing, which I'm telling you, you just don't want. So, any questions? We got a late start, but we're at an hour, which is perfect. I blew through a lot of that. Don't hesitate anytime you need help putting a listing presentation together, or you want different questions than the questions I have in there, that because you're a newer agent and maybe you can't, you know, you don't have the right answers for those, we can cater questions for you. We got all kinds of them, you guys. Been doing this a while, and it's all about the questions, in my opinion. Jeff, you got anything to add before we go?
No, sir.
You guys, that was awesome. And yeah, go out and crush the rest of the week. And let me know if you have any other feedback or you want me to add anything to this or take anything out of it. And Don, you were on the other line or something, but part of my marketing is houses go on the market on Thursdays. All right, you guys.
I already know that. Thank you.
No, I put that in there for you because I forget to tell people.